Good evening, everyone, and welcome. My name is Rudy Page, and this evening we are at the Neighbourhood Watch and Community Development Information Session, and this is being hosted today by Mezgar Gardens in St. Thomas, Jamaica. And I'm really pleased that we've got a great array of speakers and with some great experience. So this is an integral part of the Windrush Anchor Heritage Enterprise Program, where we focus on the development of communities. So there are 775 communities that make up Jamaica. So the framework within which we work is to inspire inclusive, peaceful, caring and enterprising neighborhoods and local communities. So the speakers that we have this evening reflect the neighborhood and the local communities. So I'm going to start by inviting Sergeant Winston Harris, who is the Neighbourhood Watch Coordinator, the island-wide Neighbourhood Watch Island Coordinator. Thank you very much, Sergeant Harris, and over to you.
Hello, good afternoon, everyone. I'm happy to be here. You know, in 2016, I made a quote that the Neighborhood Watch program is the simplest and most effective crime prevention tool known to man. And I know you'd wonder, why would it be that I'd be so bold to make that statement? So you must ask, is it my experience, someone else's experience, or is it research that I did or research that someone did? No, I'd say all of the above. I lived it as a child. Prior to 1988, when Gilbert came, I witnessed the effect of the Neighborhood Watch in my community in Kingston. So I don't wonder if it works. I know that it does. So let me start sharing my screen and show you salient points as to why it does. So we all have the desire to live in communities free from crime or the fear of it. Now, that is not always the situation with some of us. Some of us live in crime-riddled communities. Some communities, the crime operate from those communities. But whatever it is, the Neighborhood Watch can work. Now, now, how it is that it began in Jamaica is that it started in the United Kingdom. And what happened was that the JCF sent our commanding officer at the time at the community relation branch to the Home Office, where he studied and learned the program and then implemented it in our island. Now, the commissioner who launched the first Neighborhood Watch is Herman Ricketts, and that community is Mall Road in St. Andrew South. Currently, the Community Safety and Security Branch oversees this crime prevention tool, right? So there are some 725 communities that were launched officially launched as Neighborhood Watch groups. Now, it works in almost all the communities. There are some communities that you will experience difficulties wherever persons, few in number, because you need eyes. In the United States, they had this program, see something, say something. And so you are not expected to tackle criminals, but leave it to law enforcement. What you are expected to do is to see and say. Now, if you ask, what is it? It is defined this way, as also in our Constitution. It is a simple, uncomplicated program which unites citizens in the community to protect themselves and property by reducing the risk of crime. It sounds so simple and so easy. Why it is that it's not being used more often and there are not more communities launched is because one of the reasons is that people have work to do. It's very labor intensive. So if you are a coordinator, if you are a Dr. Muendo, you have work to do. If you are in your community and as the coordinator, you have work to do. You must always proselytize this movement. That is the way it works, right? If you notice in football matches, you'd see Ronaldo come out holding a child's hand. That child goes back and talk all kind of story on what it was like. So he will nurture that desire to become a Ronaldo, right? And that should happen within the neighborhood watch. So it needs cooperation and a mindset that we'll go on into. Now, how is it that you get a program like this start? Well, the buy-in must be there. The persons within your community must see the need for a neighborhood watch, a crime prevention. And it is not only tailored for crime prevention, but a response to disaster. You wonder what would happen if you suffered an earthquake. All of us would need emergency services. If there are crumbled buildings, there must be teams organized to go out and to assist those persons, right? What if you are trapped in a room? How would we hear you? Your whistle. You know, these are the things that we expect that you would have. Now, residents of the community should get together to form what you call a steering committee. Now, this steering committee would identify the police officer. They'd go to the police officer and get the police officer to come to your community and explain the neighborhood watch program. The first thing that they want you to know, it is not vigilantism, right? So you're not expected to tackle criminals and go lynching, right? You are expected to see and say. Now, when the police explains the program and the entire community comes together, and the police will show you and explain to you that, listen, there are a list of objectives that should be met. There are some things, some features of neighborhood watches that you must have. And so whenever these things are present, then more than likely you'll be ready to launch. My role after that is to come in and do what you call a security survey to assess if you are compliant. And then I'll go back to our commanding officer, SSP Shan, and explain to her the favorability. And then we identify a date and we have a launch. Now, the decision to launch is left entirely up to the community. So for example, Mezgar Garden wants to be launched. It is left entirely up to you. The police only can come in and recommend. Now, most persons that seek to form neighborhood watches usually have a crime-riddled area, right? So that is always a good opportunity for us to have a neighborhood watch. Now, what is the role of the police coordinator? Well, he serves from the station and he supervises, monitors the community, right? Encourage community members to be alert and employ the crime prevention principles, which I will, before I part here, make you aware of, right? Whenever you report something to him, you know, this thing is so pretty, as it were. And why I say this is that whenever you have a group of events happening, they fit within what you call POP or preventative problem-oriented policing. So the problems, whenever you have a list of activities happening, for example, you'll notice that only females having break-ins in your community. It simply tells you that somebody from that community is selling information. So there are some things that crime leave with us. They have footprints. And so we can develop profiles of persons, profile of the crimes, you know. So they keep doing the same thing over, and after a time it argues a particular solution, right? So now,
Stop.
hello. Okay, all right. So now, how the structure of the neighborhood watch is this. First, we must encourage the residents to be a part of it. So you proselytize the movement. Same way, like in Jesus' time, he commanded his disciples to go house to house preaching. The same thing that you will have to do. You go house to house and you proselytize. So you tell them that, listen, my name is Miss Muendo. I have lived in this community for such and such. We have a neighborhood watch program, and the purpose of it is to protect you, to prevent you being a victim of crime. If you are a victim of crime, these are the persons to contact. If you are going to go to the police station, we can assist you, we accompany you, you know. We need moral support in times like these, and this is what the neighborhood watch offers. There's a street coordinator, and then there's an area coordinator, right? These persons are persons who are dedicated to the cause of assisting their neighbors. Now, there are features of the neighborhood watch, and you can see the list now. If you know how to print the screen, I'd encourage you to print the screen. So the first thing that you'd want to have, to me, I think it's more important than anything else, is the sign, right? It tells criminals that, listen, there are a bunch of guys in here that are watching you, right? When they see you, they are going to communicate to law enforcement so that you can be caught. There's an alarm system. And so if they observe you observing, then they will set off the alarm, only though you will not hear noise. But the law enforcement will know that you are within the space. And it is so simple. Most of our criminals in Jamaica use vehicles to commit crime. Sometimes they park other places and walk to your community. Here's how beautiful neighborhood watch is. Whenever they are detected in the other communities, whenever they sound the alarm to the police pass on the information that, listen, them park right here, so and them walk gone in a Mezgar Gardens, right? And so the Mezgar Gardens persons are alert, right? There's also what you call the witness support system. So if you are a victim of crime and you need to go to court, the neighborhood watchers from your community usually accompany you. We experience this in the JCF. So whenever we are charged for offenses and we appear before the court, our colleagues surround us, give us that moral support. And I'm telling you, you'll never know how good and how important something like this is. You also have victim support, and you have what you call a crime panel. Now, the crime panel is community members, reputable community members, and I should say reputable community members that partner with the same police that is assigned to your community. What they do, they record all the things that are happening in the community. So if a particular vehicle is seen, all of that is recorded, right? All of that information is passed on. If there are people going over your jumping your fence, for example, and taking away mangoes and stuff like that, all of that is recorded. They are recorded on a form, which I'll show you in a couple minutes time. It's called the crime evaluation form. And the most important thing here is what you call security survey. What I've observed over the years as a crime prevention officer is that Jamaica digs itself into a crime-riddled area. You noticed the other day they took this girl, this school girl from primary school, Brayton Primary. Look at the Brayton Primary front wall. It is a wall. So if you put a wall in the United States, there are no walls around schools. Absolutely none. Right? It should never happen. You ought to be able to stay outside and look straight through and see children and persons on the property. Should be able to see straight through the fencing. It is what you call crime prevention through environmental design. And I'll speak about that very briefly. Also, what you call property, another feature is property marking. So there's what you call a selector DNA, which Mark Shields introduced to us some years ago, but there's also another way to mark your property. And there are two ways to mark it. You mark it overt and covert, or conspicuous and inconspicuous. So you mark it that it's obvious that you are trying to say, listen, this is owned by someone, right? And you mark it at some places that, believe me, they're going to have a hard time finding. And why you do this is that whenever we recover these properties, it goes back to you. That's one. But guess what? It also builds on the criminal tally sheet, right? And then Madam Judge or Mr. Judge will be less lenient, right? Which that is what we want, right? All right, so now this is what you call the crime evaluation form. So you notice it says the name of scheme, Mezgar Garden, date of the evaluation is, and you'll say when it is that I came or when it is Sergeant Garden came and did the security survey, the date of the last evaluation, all of these things, and you see offenses there identified for you to pick, choose, and see whatever your issue is. You can also add stuff. You understand? Things that are may be non-policing issues, right? On this form, and the community security, safety and security officer within the community would take it to his commander, right? And they flesh out how is it that they'll treat your community. Now, the meat of the matter is this: preventing crimes. Now, the scientists that are responsible for crime prevention all theorize and all through the philosophy that whenever a crime happens, there are three things present. So there's the victim or the target, the criminal, and the opportunity. Now, if I were to ask you which of these would you remove to prevent a crime from happening, you may very well say the victim. But if I told you that tomorrow you were going to be raped at 12 p.m. at this spot, you'd laugh me to scorn. The easiest thing to do is to address the situation. The criminal only becomes a criminal when he commits the offense. Right? So there are ways to treat it, and over time, and with the partnership between CSS and Mezgar Gardens, all of this thing will be brought to you and nicely packaged in our community, in our physical community meeting, so that you are able to embrace the power that you really have. There are ways to treat each of these situations, right? So let us move now. The simplest way to prevent crimes is by applying 10 crime prevention principles. The first is to harden the target. So if you do not have burger bars, when I take out your glass windows, that's an easy way in. So all houses have windows, right? How secure they are is another thing. So you might want to use shrill alarms at your window, so whenever they break the window, it goes off and it will never stop. There's also fencing that you can, fencing actually communicates to persons that your property is owned. So whenever they give you a brand new spanking community, yes, whenever you get there, you'll notice that they don't give you any fence. But Jamaicans build their problems by making a fence so high, them can't see them neighbor and the neighbor can't see them. So if the criminal jumps the fence and over there assaulting you, your neighbor will not be able to see. So you might want to lower your fences and have fences that you can see through. Now, another thing in communities is what you call derelict buildings or damaged properties. So they stay in your community and persons, whenever they become unoccupied, people or criminals find themselves over there and operate from there. Sometimes they take up residence in your community. But usually when you have a neighborhood watch, that can't play. So, you know, that's the importance of a neighborhood watch. There's also what you call, the second principle is target removal. So you garage a car overnight is a good example. You remove, you demolish the derelict buildings, you remove the jewelry from the shops at night, you know, you house the vulnerable people. We have a way in Jamaica to kill the vulnerable people on our streets, right? You can remove them, and that is one way to solve the issue. Now, the other is to remove the means to commit the crime. If you were at the National Stadium years ago, especially when I was a teenager, I remember once when I stood at the section of Calabar, and Calabar won, there were persons on the opposing side that threw glass bottles, and you should see me run. Now, over years, the JSF and those persons trained in crime prevention made it mandatory that you couldn't carry glass. You only can get them plastic cups now, and they pour out juice to you. So you can't toss a bottle, and you have to be a plastic bottle of Coca-Cola. You can't. You understand? So these are the things that you do. You remove the means to commit the crime. You take up the stones in your community, right? Because two little arguments go on, and before you know it, stones start throwing, right? So, you know, these are ways to remove the means to commit the crime. You reduce the payoff, and I'll speak about that dealing with criminals, because there are actually 3 persons in your community, but we'll go on to that. We reduce the payoff when you don't carry a large sums of cash. And whenever you are going to sell your car, you make the police aware, you meet them at the police station, and you exchange the cash, and the police will assist you in getting to the bank and depositing, right? These are some of the things. And remember now, years ago when Mr. Ellington was commissioner of police, that he made us, he put that in our force orders and commanded us to assist members of the public who are exchanging large volumes of cash, right? All right, so another way to do it is property mark, as you were told before, using UV pens. If you notice nowadays, when in some countries, whenever you rob the bank and you open the bag, there's a spray that goes off and wet all the money, so you can't spend it. You understand? That's reducing the payoff too. All right, so there's another crime prevention tool called access control, and that is ensuring that, for example, you have companies, not anyone can enter into your company, right? You have a security guard that screens. Some communities, they are gated, so this is access control. You can also have access control by getting your CCTV camera right at your entrance and exit points. The ways within your community, those are things that you might want to have access control over. So it's not because you cannot prevent him from coming in, but he's being watched when he comes in. So that's another way to access control. You have visibility now as surveillance. There are 3 types. You have natural surveillance, which is, as it says here, removing shrubbery. So if you, I mean, give a good example. Years ago, they raped a girl over the cemetery of Spanish Town Road in broad daylight, because a whole heap of bush over there. So for community members, if you're, I think when I Googled, I saw the Google map in Mezgar Gardens, I saw there's a lot of greenery in the space, I think. I'm not sure, you can tell me if I'm wrong, because I've not been there physically. But you are to ensure that the shrubbery, you don't have too much of them, that they allow criminals to be invisible, right? So you must install street lights to lower fences, as was said earlier. The other surveillance, you know, you have your security guards. So sometimes some communities, they are one way in, one way out. Those communities usually have low crime profiles. The avenue that are cul-de-sac, I've always bought houses on cul-de-sac or resided on cul-de-sacs. And why? Because I know that if you come in, you must come out. And if I alert the police and they meet you right at the top of your entrance point, I like to see how quick you are at running. So that's just one of the ways. There's the informal structure, and this is where you come in. We make the community members so resilient and knowledgeable that they become so vigilant and no crime escape them, right? They never interact with the criminal, right? And even if they interact, is to say morning and evening and to discern what the motive is before they pass it on, right? So the other part of it, which I pay unusual attention to, is environmental design. Now, since 1970 in the United States, this thing has been working. I'll bring this to you whenever I come to your community. It encompasses three things: target hardening, visibility, and surveillance, as also environmental design. And there's the last, well, our second to last, the rule setting, which is, you know, some community members, whenever you come into the community, they alert everyone. Look here, I'm coming 2 o'clock this tomorrow morning. So someone sits up and wait for them to come in. You understand? Yeah, they have rules in there in the WhatsApp group, right? Rules of the things that you can post, you know, rule setting, right? So the other part of it is increasing the chance of the perpetrators being caught. And you use CCTV systems, your lighting supposed to be good, and you have alarm systems. And you must deflect offenders. Sometimes the offenders come from within. The children grow up, they're not going to school, and so they are not engaged, and criminal networks find them and want to use your community as bait, right? You must deflect them, trust me, right? All right, so now within your community, there are 3 types of people. I want you to pay attention to, deep attention to what I'm saying now. There's the resident, right? Which is you. And then there's the user of the space. So if I come in there, I'm regarded as a user of the space. And then there's the criminal. But let me tell you my experience. Sometimes the resident is the criminal. Sometimes the user of the space is the criminal. So you have to ensure that you employ these 10 crime prevention principles that communicates both to the resident that, listen, you're safe, you know. To the user of the space, listen, you're safe if you're not trying nothing. And to the criminal, you're not safe. Right? It's so simple. It's not funny. It's very, very simple, but you have work to do. Right? You have work to do. That is pretty much it in a nutshell. What I have said to you actually demands hours. So you had the opportunity to take the snapshots of the slides and so. But I want to come into your community along with Sergeant Gordon, you know, so I can have a meaningful conversation and fine-tuning how it is that you can become an effective neighborhood watch. Thanks so much all for your attention.
Thank you. Thank you very much for that, Sergeant Harris. Very interesting, very informative. I would now like to move towards and then invite Dr. Asha Wendo to speak as the National President for Neighbourhood Watch. And having had such an interesting overall presentation, Madam President, I would like you to in your experience, give us what the 3 key priorities for citizens who wish to become active within their neighbourhoods and local communities.
Okay, one of the first, and this is very, for me, I first must thank Sergeant Harris for that lovely presentation. That made my work quite easy because I would have had to do all of what he just did. Right, so thank you, sir. But there are about 10 things that we have as our pillars for the Neighborhood Watch movement, and I'm going to pick 3 out of it. If you want to get your community to be safe, first thing you must do is decide to come together and be united. Because when the communities are united, it helps, and it also shows to the others outside that we mean business, we want to be safe. So you must be united. You must have a desire within your community. Each individual must have a true desire to be safe and to be part of the solution and not be a part of the problem. Because let's face it, we have all kinds of persons that make up our community. And some of these persons have decided that they want to be a part of the problem. So in order for the community to come together to counteract that, we must have desire to be safe, and we must always practice to be alert. Alertness is what helps. We know who is in our space. We know who we see strangers within our space. We should be able to identify them. In our communities, sometimes we have strange people and nobody pays attention. Nobody pays attention to it. And so therefore, alertness, unity, and willing to get crime and violence down in your community is one of the most important priorities I think any community would need to create safety. And I will add a 4th one: be willing to be partners with your safety and security branch, with your police partners. Be willing to be partners, and don't give into the whole thing about no informer in here, informer for dead policy. We need to kill that down. We are not informers. We are community safety practitioners. We are taking care of our own selves. We are looking out for our backs.
Thank you very much. And you've kind of touched on much of what I was going to ask you as part of the second point.
Go ahead. Yes.
Local communities are a collection of neighborhoods with diverse interests and attitudes towards collective responsibility. So I'm wondering, can you give us an example where small groups of citizens, maybe 3 to 5 people, and how they've been able to make an impact in their neighborhood and community just by, again, getting together as you spoke about?
I'm going to give you 2, and I'm going to start at the most recent one. Yesterday evening, a gentleman in his community, and what we want to, why I'm going to give you this one, we want to bring out that the Neighborhood Watch is not only about crime, it's about community collective caring for each other. So yesterday, a gentleman who lived alone and had no family fell from his tree in his own yard. He cried out for help. The neighbors, it was in the late evening, neighbors didn't have the wherewithal to help him, but they knew who to call. So they called a disaster rep for the community, and they called me. Well, they called me and I called the disaster rep. Then the disaster rep called the ambulance. Ambulance went in and he was rescued. And he was brought to the hospital, and so he's now in the hospital. That's the community coming together to keep each other safe. Then a personal experience, a few years ago, when I was doing active work with the Red Cross group, I went to a community to do distribution. My father lived in the community, so I decided to go visit him. When I got there, he was not there. So we parked and decided to wait for him on a corner. Gunman came and held us up. And so he had his gun. He told us to take off our clothes and all of that. I did tell him I was born naked and not going to die naked. So he'll have to kill me in my clothes. But while he was doing that, he took our cell phones, but I had another phone on me. So I dialed the phone without him noticing, and then I decided to talk just like I'm talking to you now. You know, and I said, I'm standing here under this, and I'm praying that 119 is picking up. 119 kicked in, they understood my conversation, they realized we were in danger, and they sent help from the Duncan's police station. But while that was happening, neighbors as well were looking out and seeing what was happening, and also came to our rescue by the police came. That is a collective working together for our own safety and security. And if we continue to do that in every community, we can let those perpetrators know you are not welcome here. Until we come together as a community and decide to stand up, have a little bit of some sharp blood in our veins and nanny and all of these things, knowing that some may die, but we more of us will live if some may die, and come together, then the criminals will understand they are not welcome in our space.
Thank you for that. And of course, Paul Bogle, given it St. Thomas.
Yes, and Paul Bogle as well from St. Thomas. Yes. Yes, so true, so true.
Excellent. So final point before you bring in Mr. Wilson, and you kind of touched on it there. So the feeling of safety and security in the neighborhood of any, the feeling of safety and security is the lifeblood of any neighborhood. In your experience, where is the starting point?
The starting point is a desire to be safe. The starting point is a desire, is saying enough, we have had enough. The starting point is us coming together to say, we can make a change. The starting point is not waiting to see what they can do for us, but what are we willing to do for ourselves? An 8-year-old was killed in Jamaica, and it started a movement. It's not the first child that was killed, but it came at a time, you know, when they said Esther was in the kingdom for a time as this, it came at a time when Jamaicans were reaching a place where we say enough is enough. The Neighborhood Watch movement was the first group that put out a statement after she died this Saturday morning. It media picked it up quickly, more quickly than we thought it would have. And so we said, we are going to stand for change, and we're going to be adding things as we go along, and we have intention to do more things. The JPs and custodies, they decided, oh, that is a very good thing, and they started the process. And it will continue until we feel that it is too much for us, until we get to that place where we say, enough is enough, and I know I can have more, and I'm willing to be a part of that change. We will not be safe and will not be secure.
Okay, thank you. So if you can bring
Mr. Wilson, where are you? So for where safety and security is concerned, now Mr. Wilson knows more of the area than I do. And so he will now tell us a little bit of what is needed. You did tell me about doing some debushing and all of that. And I hear Sergeant Harris mention the bush again. So in Mr. Wilson now, in his experience in St. Thomas overall and in that area, will kind of tell us, how do we come together to keep that little area safe and St. Thomas on a whole? Because if one little area is safe and the rest is still not safe, we are still in trouble. Mr. Wilson.
Okay. Thank you, Doctor. Good evening, Rudy.
Good evening.
Good evening, everyone that is online. And I must say, special good evening to Mary Isaacs Black, a very good friend of mine. Okay, so just to add a little bit to what Doctor said a while ago. After becoming a member of the St. Thomas Neighborhood Watch movement, I had the unfortunate, and in some way I should say fortunate, experience of being held up at my gate at gunpoint as well. And from that, I got the first-hand experience of seeing true neighborhood at work. Because by the time the perpetrators would have left my premises, I got inside and I asked my wife just to reach out to one particular neighbor. That one neighbor was able to provide me with some information. And from that information, I was able to contact the police. I could give them basic description of the perpetrators. And it was 2 persons that held me up. But based on the information from the neighbor, I realized that it was actually 3 persons at work. So the police said to me, even though I might not have been able to identify them, and based on the geographic layout of the area, it would be difficult to locate them because there are several ways that they could have left the community. However, this happened in the night, and within an half an hour, I got a phone call from the officers that they found the guys. And somebody might look on and say, oh, is that possible? And something interesting that occurred in my community was that person said, boy, if it was not you, then possibly they might not have located the persons. And why that statement was made is the relationship, the very close relationship that I have with the officers. And what I would say to the members or to the viewers on a whole is that you need to have a close relationship with the police within your area. That's the very first point. Also, have a good relationship within your neighborhood, because there are some neighbors that nobody looks if there's anything happening, because they might not be on good terms with persons. But once you have a good connection with your neighbors, then ultimately, even you, though you might not see them looking out for you, but they're actually looking out for you, which is always key. The neighbors that you consider to be the nosy ones at times are actually the best ones, because they see everything and they know everything that is happening. So make a good connection with your neighbors, make excellent connection with the police officers within your area. All right, as would have been outlined by Sergeant Harris in terms of doing a survey of your community. All right, see how the community is situated, what are hindrances to proper crime prevention methods. Also be on the alert for things that look different within your community. There are times we tend to ignore our sixth sense, and our sixth sense plays a very vital role in providing proper security for you. Because guess what? It's that innate thing that tells you that something is off. You realize that something is off, reach out to somebody and say, have you noticed anything different? And that sort of gives you an extra leg to stand on in the event something is actually out of place. All right? So probably you might wonder, how is the best way to get one started within your community? How to start a neighborhood watch? Well, it starts with having concerned citizens willing to come together to agree that something needs to be done in the community. A movement needs to be formed. A lot of times we react after something has happened. But what is good is for us to have it formed prior to something happening. So basically, we are not adjusting to what has happened, but we are being proactive. The whole idea is preventing the thing before it actually occurs. All right? So the residents of the community come together, they make a decision that they want to have a neighborhood watch movement within their space. And then they form a committee and then they reach out to the police. All right, I think you already would have Sergeant Harris's contact, but I'll provide you a little bit later with Sergeant Gordon's contact as well. And he actually wanted to be here this evening so he could make some connections, but he's actually at the funeral service of a soldier. All right, so he wasn't able to make it. But the key thing is to make contact with your local police, have them come in to do some sensitization. They'll tell you the various different committees that you need to have. And then they'll be able to provide you with additional tips to what Sergeant Harris has already given. So basically, they'll try to map the community. So you would know who is your direct neighbor on the left or on the right. And then your neighbors will know their neighbors as well. So by the time they have already collected the information, they basically can draw up a map of the entire community to tell who lives where. And in the event of something happening on a particular street, who is the best person to contact. All right. So as we progress with further meetings, I'll be able to give you more details as to what is really happening. And we really want to put some things in place to really alert persons that the neighborhood watch is actually still in existence in Jamaica and we are still making impact in our communities. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that, Mr. Wilson. And part of our campaign for 2024 is to support the neighbourhood watch across the 775 communities of Jamaica. So that, again, that was an excellent overview. I'm just going to ask Dean Roden very quickly just to talk only about neighbourhood watch activities that he's been involved in Hermitage in Augustown, please, Dean. And then, I'll come back to you, Dr. Asher, to give the final word. Go ahead, Dean.
I don't want you to just stop me because this is so exciting. If I'm talking too much, just say stop, please. Can you imagine you were a part of the forming of the Neighborhood Watch? I was a part of it. I was appointed by the commissioner to start a scout group in every community in Jamaica. You know, I did the training, and I think the breakdown was, you know, Hermitage was one of the first community to have that Neighborhood Watch. Some communities just want to have the Neighborhood Watch without doing the training. And that's great. I have my whistle. Each of my members still have their IDs. We have the pot cover there. We have everything. Sarge McIntyre, one of my students. Sergeant McIntyre, one of my youth club, one of my students. So whatever you said, I give you 150%. You were on target. I have all those documents. I went to the training. Hermitage of the block, 4 blocks. I am here. I've left Jamaica over 12 years, and I'm still in touch with Hermitage. And why Hermitage? Because we have a system that nobody knows up until now. I can call anybody and find it. I can tell you how many children live in Hermitage, how many old people live in Hermitage. So Neighborhood Watch, you don't disclose it to other people. So sometimes people might wonder why Hermitage is so unique, because we are trained. We have Block A, Block B, Block C, and I did every one of the blocks there. And as I was telling everybody, each community have to create their own system, you know, but you have to abide by it, because once a police is coming, there's some people we're narrowed down. Because remember that these criminals is a part of the community. They are brothers, they are sisters, they are nephews. So you have to know your inner circle. What you said, each time I keep a Neighborhood Watch, not one police come and give none of my members a card, because the same friends looking to see who get a card from the police. Because the criminal is at the meeting too. You know, and he's gonna say, oh, so you're the snitchers. That is reality. Even the very police. I've had incident, and it's the police call them and I said, this was paying for everything. So you have to know that even the very police, sometimes you zoom it down to just the inspector where you give certain info, you know, with due respect, because he might not do it, because it could be his cousin, could be his brother, could just randomly saying things. So I'm very pleased to be on the platform.
Right.
And
so,
Mr. I can tell, I'm gonna tell Sergeant McIntyre to make sure they tip up a stripe on your shoulder for that presentation.
Right.
Well done, sir.
Thank you very much for that, Dean. And Dr. Asher, last word from you, please.
Yes, so I am indeed glad that we have another group in St. Thomas willing and ready now to get themselves organized. I will work with the team as much as I'm involved to ensure that it happens. One of the things I want to say, as this community and other communities across the island, you're forming your groups, you're putting your executive bodies together. One of the things you need to bear in mind is choose people who, under pressure, will not break. Under pressure will still maintain their integrity. So it have less challenges, and it will bring less questioning to your organization and your group, right? And so as we move forward, we need to understand that together we can make a difference. If you have a community right now and you want to have a Neighborhood Watch group there, reach out to us. My number, I placed it in the chat, but I will tell you again, it's 876-870-2284. Reach out to us, we will come to you, or reach out to the nearest police station to your community to start the ball rolling. We are asking every street, every district, every community in Jamaica to start having a Neighborhood Watch if you don't have one as yet. If you do, one is in your community, become a part of it. Together we make ourselves safe. Together we make it uncomfortable for those who don't want to change.
Thank you. And that's the message. Stand for change. Thank you, everybody. And this was a community meeting or information meeting hosted by Mezgar Gardens, St. Thomas. And it's really about the Neighbourhood Watch movement and the links with the local police as partners to the community. Thank you very much and good night.